Hey guys, Hong-Zhi here, hosting the first ever Mario Superstar Baseball debate tournament. Over on the Mario Baseball Club Discord, 8 people signed up to participate in a tournament debating the viability of the different Mario Superstar Baseball characters. The winner doesn't really get anything, it's just for bragging rights, but we hope that this will be a very fun event and hope that you guys can learn something by witnessing this. Today, we have a debate between Boo and Green Paratroopa. For a long time, these two have been considered two of the best characters in the entire game. So today, DennisShumar and LittleCoaks will be debating once and for all to see which one is truly better. So on one end of this debate, we've got DennisShumar11. He will be arguing that Boo is a better character than Paratroopa. And on the other end of this argument, we've got LittleCoaks. He will be arguing that Paratroopa is a better character than Boo. Each participant will have basically 5 minutes to make an argument as to why their character is better than the other one. Afterwards, the next person will have the floor for another 5 minutes. After that, it'll basically go back and forth. Each person will have 3 5-minute arguments, and at the end, each person will get like a 1 to 2 minute conclusion to just wrap up their thoughts. This is a bit of a special episode because my headphones aren't working with OBS right now. So I am going to actually be muted for this entire episode. I won't be able to hear a single thing they are saying. That might be a huge issue, but I know LittleCoaks and Dennis, they're nice guys. They're not going to put racial slurs in my video. Please don't.
No.
Yeah. Is there anything else I really need to say? If you run over 5 minutes, I will interrupt you. Because I can't hear what you're saying, I will cut you off mid-sentence because, again, I cannot hear what you're saying. And without further ado, the debate is going to begin. Before we started, I flipped a coin, and LittleCoaks, you are actually going to be starting here. So when I stop talking, you will have 5 minutes to talk, and yeah. So, without further ado, LittleCoaks, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. So, I'll just get started then. So, I am arguing the point of Paratroopa being a better character than Boo. So, what does Paratroopa have going for him? He's got a lot. Number one is one of the most obvious things, or at least his most powerful attributes, is his star swing. He's got an excellent 1-star swing. So a line drive can go right up the third base or first base line. Almost always gets on base. If not, you're getting a double. Incredibly powerful. 1-star swings are great for driving in runs, scoring, and all that stuff. Furthermore, there's a decent amount of 1-star swing characters. There's not an overabundance, and so if you are a 1-star swinger, obviously that's going to make you a much more valuable character. An example of this, Dry Bones, for example, becomes a much better character, specifically the green one, just because he has a 1-star swing. He's got a lot more going for him, though, not just the star swing. He's decently fast. He's got a speed stat of 6. Not too crazy, but also not bad either. It's just enough where he's a great outfielder. And so putting him at center field or right field is usually a really good option. The reason that I say outfield is because he's also got a great throwing arm, meaning that he can usually field the ball from the outfield and then quickly get the ball into the infield in order to shut down plays, prevent runs from being scored, and all of that. In addition to all of that, he's also great in the outfield for his super jump ability, which, albeit, doesn't come into play too often, but when it does and when it's successful, you can rob home runs, you can save games, and all of that. Very good ability to have. Now, in the event that your team is oversaturated with outfielders, let's say you stole Yoshi and Noki and, I don't know, some other outfielder, and, you don't really want to put him there, that's fine. You can still put Paratroopa at third or first base. He'll work just fine. He's not the best third baseman or first baseman of the game because he doesn't have the laser ability, but the fact that he has super jump and a good throwing arm, he'll still do a pretty good job there. So, to sum up, mainly the strong suits of Paratroopa. His star swing is just incredible, and star swings are always a very valuable thing to have. You always want to have star swingers on your team. You usually want at least 2, and he's got that. He's also a great outfielder. He can rob home runs. He can play center or right field. If you really need him to, he can also play third or first base. And he's got a great throwing arm for getting the ball back into the infield. One last point about Paratroopa I forgot to mention is his Bowser chemistry and the fact that he is great on Bowser teams. Bowser is pretty much most players agree that Bowser is the best in the game. If they don't have Bowser at number 1, Bowser is probably number 2 in their book. Like, Bowser kind of just defines the meta in a way, just because of how powerful he is. Paratroopa is a very powerful character because he has Bowser chemistry and Bowser captain compatibility. So what does that mean? Well, if you have Paratroopa, let's say, batting first in your lineup, you can put Paratroopa up first and then Bowser right afterwards, meaning that Paratroopa is likely getting on base, and then you have Bowser with chemistry, and that is pretty devastating for the fielder. You're almost, you don't want to pitch to Bowser in that case, and if you walk Bowser, now you got a man on first and second, no outs, right? Furthermore, 5-star captain compatibility is very powerful. It means that if your captain is Bowser, you have a good shot of starting off the game with 4 or 5 stars on 4 or 5 team stars, which is very good to have. So that's about it I got for Paratroopa. And yeah, those are my main points on why I believe Paratroopa is a very powerful character in this game. So now I'll let Dennis take the floor to make his case for Boo.
Okay, very well spoken. So I'll just talk about Boo first. So first and foremost, I think Boo, if you want to argue he's not the best pitcher, you can argue with him not being the second best pitcher in the game. And even with that, him being the second best pitcher in the game, even if you want to put Dixie or Waluigi or really any of the pitchers, you can't argue that of the pitchers that are considered good pitchers, he hands down has the best bat above all. We don't really have any pitchers in this game that have 1 stars. So of the pitchers that are going to be used as pitchers, he's the only character that has the shot to get an extra base hit, charge or non-charge swing. Besides maybe Daisy, and Daisy, is not really getting drafted as a captain. So 2 stars, is something you really don't want to always have to use and rely on. I have Boo on my personal tier list as the 4th best player in the game. And that's because I think what Boo does, no one else can do. I think Boo has very similar qualities to Donkey Kong, which there's not many players that can replicate what a Donkey Kong or Yoshi or what a Boo can do. So just for starters, right now through season 6, which I think we have a very high amount of competitive players in this game, Boo has one of the highest slugging percentages next to every single heavy, that being Bowser, DK, and I believe that's around it. I think you want to have characters that use 1 stars, but not having to rely on a star, I think makes the other characters around, like Paratroopa, like a non-Captain Birdo, like a non-Captain Wario, like a Toadsworth, I think not having to have to use the ability to drive in guys from first base, which I think Boo is better than almost any character because of that slap hit trajectory, I think is better. And we're even right now tracking the numbers just from a pure offensive standpoint. Boo has a higher slugging percentage over Para. Now you can say, oh, well, that's a testament to the club not using Para, blah, 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 blah. But when one character is using stars and the other one's not using stars, you have to be able to give it to the character not using a star, because not having to use a star means you can use stars with lesser hitters like Green Noki, like Madge, So I think Boo's ability to be the best pitcher in the game, in my opinion, and the best hitter, non-starred, non-heavy, which I have Boo as, I don't really know how there can be much of an argument. I think Paratroopa's problem with me is that Paratroopa falls into the line of very similar and replaceable, right? So we have 4 other 1-star characters, which, you could say that Paratroop is better than all of them. Fine, I won't argue it. But to say that Paratroop is better than Boo, who's almost irreplaceable, at least from an offensive pitcher, it's hard for me to say Paratroopa is better. Now, I'll go more into Paratroopa later on to this debate, but Boo, best pitcher, one of the best hitters in this game, not having to use a star. And I think the fact that you can use that star and give it to another character, that just makes Boo so much better, because even when you have a Captain DK or a Captain Birdo, you're using a star. And the reason why we have Bowser at number 1 is because you don't have to use a star to drive in extra runs with Bowser. With Boo, with Bowser, with Petey, with Hammer Bro, not having to use a star to get an extra base hit is huge. And I think that's where I have Boo so much higher, because with Dixie, with everyone else, you need stars. But I'll pass this back over to you.
All right, thank you. All right, yeah, so I'll just go into, I guess now I'll take this time to talk about Boo a little bit more. So you did raise some really good points. The fact that Boo is able to get on base, pretty consistently without having to use the star, and that frees up stars for the rest of your team. That's definitely a very strong suit of Boo. I'm not going to argue against that. That's very nice. What I will say about Boo, at least on the mound, I think if Boo was, if Boo was in a separate tier in terms of pitching ability, where he was just so much better than everyone else at pitching in the game, and no one else was really comparable to him, then I would probably agree in this debate that Boo would just be a much better character just because of how more valuable he is. The thing about Boo is that, at least when I'm playing the game, when my opponent picks Boo before I can, I'm never too nervous, because I know that there's still plenty of other options I can have for pitchers in the game, other characters I can draft instead of Boo, to fill that role. And, while Boo does offer advantages over the other pitchers in the game, I don't think it's too great to warrant that, I would want to pick him so early, and that I would get, nervous in a way, or, feel like I missed out if my opponent drafts him first. I'm a big fan of Toadsworth on the mound, because, he's a decent pitcher, not as good as Boo, but he's also a great singles bat as well. So it almost in a way fills that missing role of Boo, but obviously isn't a Toadsworth debate. But yeah, I think if Boo was unarguably best pitcher around, no one else compared to him, he would have a lot more value. In terms of singles bat and everything like that, that is a very good point. I will say there's a decent amount of characters who can still get on base pretty consistently with their singles bat. It is very nice to have, but it's not the most consistent thing in the world. I will say that star hits tend to be a lot more consistent overall, where you can, especially the line drive that Paratroopa has, where you're able to not only get on base almost all the time, but also get doubles and drive in runs, which is a great advantage that star hitters have. With the singles bat, you don't really have that luxury. It's not just about making good contact. You have to make good, really good contact, right? You want to be, you have to be able to control the ball. You have to be able to control the direction, make it go over, hit that gap between the outfielders and the infielders and all that. So I would say that, I guess to sum up that point, if you're relying on a no-star singles hit, you don't have as much luxury for error, if that makes sense. Whereas you do have a little bit more room for error with a star hit for getting on base, as well as the potential for doubles and driving in runs, which I think is a very strong suit that Paratroopa, of course, has. I don't think there's anything else I really had to say for that point. I guess. Last point about Boo I want to mention. Boo does. His chemistry is not too bad. He's got chemistry with Wario, Magic Koopa, and Waluigi. It's not too bad. I mean, those are. Not Waluigi. King Boo. It's not too bad. King Boo is a great character as well. I don't think his chemistry is as good as Paratroopa's, where Paratroopa has that Bowser compatibility, and where Paratroopa on the Bowser team makes Paratroopa so much more of a threat Vice versa, if you draft Paratroopa away from the Bowser team loses a huge utility. Boo's chemistry again it's not bad. It's really good. I don't think it's as good as Paratroopa's, and it's just because of that Bowser factor. So I didn't mention that in the last point, so I just thought I'd bring it up now real quick. But that summarizes my that's my second point. So okay. You can go ahead and take the floor.
Okay, so to wrap up where I stand on Boo, you made a good point. You brought up the fact when you verse Boo, you're not afraid. You're not shaking in your boots and saying, "Oh, Boo's on the mound." I'd agree. I don't think with any pitcher in this game, there's that, oh crap, they are that much better than everyone else. Because I do think there's like Dixies, and I do think there's even Diddy's and, Goomba, which I'm high on Dixie and I'm high on Goomba. But playing this game at a really, I would think, high competitive level, I do think that there's you can make more mistakes with Boo on the mound. You can leave more pitches over. And at the last second, you could ultimately bring the ball back off the plate, back on the plate. And I think because you're just given a lot more room to maneuver and manipulate the plate, I think you can get away with more. That being said, Boo is probably the best pitcher at having star swingers swing through pitches and baiting stars, because you're able to get the ball extremely off the plate to where you can't use contact on a Birdo ball. Like, Birdo has a small bat. There's other characters that, like Magic Koopa and Toadsworth, that get jammed very easily. Even characters like Paratroopa, which they'll foul it off. And Boo will straight up, if you know how to pitch to a character, I'll look at a player's feet in the box. And with other characters, I won't have that luxury to really bring that ball in off the plate, off the plate. And I think he does a really nice job at limiting the one-star swingers because he has so much movement on his pitching. Now, the thing is while I don't think he is heads and tails, throughout the entire 9-inning game of Mario Baseball as a pitcher, I do think manipulating the plate with the one-star hitters gives him an advantage over other pitchers, which I don't think anyone could argue. The second thing is that while he may not be exponentially better as a pitcher throughout the 9-inning game of the other pitchers, he is exponentially better at hitting, and it's not close. Owning Boo means your other player has to own a Dixie, which isn't awful, or a Goomba, which isn't awful, or a Daisy, but they're not getting an extra base hit. There is no chance they get a home run. There's no chance they get a double unless one of them uses a star or they're forcing a throw home. And having a player like Boo that, with bases loaded, can get a double and clear the entire bases, having a first and third with a Bowser behind Boo, which I like to do, and forcing an inside pitch and leaning into it and getting hit, which I think Boo is the best at getting hit on inside pitches. It's awesome. And I just think from an offensive standpoint, there's things that he does that no one else does. And that you can't argue. Like with DK, with Boo, there's just some characters that are almost irreplaceable at the position that they play. Now, leading into that, I don't like this notion that, and you haven't said it once, but I don't like the notion that Paratroopa is one of the best outfielders in this game. I don't see it. I love Paratroopa. I will take Paratroopa inside my top 5 or 6 picks every single time. But I don't like this notion that Paratroopa is this God's gift among outfielders, because I don't think he is. I think Dixie's a better outfielder. I think Diddy's a better outfielder. I think Mario's a better outfielder. I think Luigi's a better outfielder. I think Greenoki's a better outfielder. I think Yoshi's a better outfielder. I think Toadette's a better outfielder. Now, you can say, oh, well, he has Bowser compatibility. How many times do we see star chances the first 2 innings pop up, and it's like, oh, you know what? I have 5 stars, and I've already won the 2 star chances as a pitcher. Like, I have no stars to use. What does it matter if I started with 4 or I started with 3? Because I'm never starting a team with 5 stars on my Bowser team. I'm just never doing it. So the difference is 4 stars to 3 stars. I don't think I've ever started a game with 2 Bowser stars. I don't think I've ever started a game with 5 Bowser stars. So yes, while he has Bowser compatibility, 3 to 4 stars, it's really a 1-star maybe swap. And granted, while he has a fantastic arm, I have never played this game a bunch. I'm never in a position where I'm saying, oh, you know what? Paratroopa would have got the out from outfield to home. It's like I almost always carry a character with laser on my team at second or shortstop. That being said, the only plays that I'm ever saying, oh, that's really close, is when it's a throw to second base, which Paratroopa doesn't have chemistry with any of the second basemen. At least Mario has compatibility with Yoshi. At least at least Diddy and Dixie have compatibility with DK. Noki has compatibility with Pianta. So it's like, if you're saying, well, who is a better arm at throws that I think actually matters, and I'm wrapping up in 5 minutes at 4:40, I think that Paratroopa arm-wise lacks because he doesn't have compatibility with anyone but catcher Bowser. Now, that being said, what if Bowser's at first base and you have catcher Petey? Now it's like, okay, you don't have compatibility with anyone throwing home. So now I'll give it back to you at 4:58. Wow, that was good.
All right. All right, thanks. So, okay, so I guess I'll address that last point you made because, it's still fresh in everyone's minds. So the thing about the throwing arm, I will say this. He's got a great throwing arm, and you mentioned, there's not too many plays where, you think that arm saves plays. But I will say this. It's not a crazy throwing arm like, say DK or PD, but it's good enough where it's doing the work. It will be doing work without necessarily everybody realizing it. There are characters who aren't going to get the ball into the infield as quickly as, other characters, and that slowness can really hinder things. It really prevents you from making plays, getting the ball back to the end, moving the ball around, stopping those extra base runs, stopping everyone from advancing. I think just the threat of being able to throw people out can really stop people from even attempting to, try to get those extra bases, try to get those extra points on you. And, I think his arm is, it's not overwhelming, but I think it's good enough where it's doing the work that it should be doing, but it's not necessarily like showy. It's not very noticeable as, say, PD's arm would be. In terms of his throwing arm too, like, I will agree he's not the best outfielder in the game, right? I would take, if I could put 3 Yoshis in the outfield, I would do that in a heartbeat, right? He's not, he's not the greatest outfielder in the game. I can't necessarily think of another outfielder. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I cannot think of another outfielder who's got a better throwing arm. Where, you can get those balls back into the infield in time. I mean, Yoshi's an incredible outfield, but his arm's terrible, right? So, that's a great advantage that he offers. In terms of throwing the ball to home plate, because I know you mentioned that, I never necessarily go for that anyway. I almost never try to throw the ball directly to home from the outfield. I'll almost always cut it off to an infielder like DK, or if I have PD on third or somebody like that who has laser, and then send it in home, because that's almost always a lot more efficient. And in those close cutting plays to home plate, where every frame matters, having the slightly better throwing arm that Paratroopa offers could be pivotal. It could be the difference between a run scored or an out. So now to touch up on your other point about Boo's bat. He does have a very consistent bat. I'm not going to argue that. In terms of the other pitchers and his bat and all that, again, like, I think the consistency that Paratroopa's bat offers with his star is just too valuable to give up. Furthermore, I know Hong-Zhi loves to talk about this, but you can, in theory, learn your setups and learn how to hit with most characters in the game. There are very few characters who genuinely can't hit. And while Boo does have a lot more consistency with getting on base, it's definitely not impossible to learn it with other characters. If you wanted to become a great hitter with Dixie, you could go ahead and do that. And, sometimes players just randomly always get on base with Dixie or Daisy or whatever character. Personally, I bat like 800 every time I play with Bowser Jr. I don't know why. I just have figured out his bat for some reason. So he does have a great bat. I'm not going to argue against that. I don't think it's a factor that'll really bump him up too crazy high. Certainly I don't think it'll be high enough to put him against Paratroopa. And let's see, wrapping up on time here. I think there's one other point I was going to mention, but I cannot remember. So I'll just give you the floor and mention it again in my 1 minute wrap up if I remember it.
Okay, so I'm gonna piggyback off what you said. The throwing it off to the cutoff man and throwing it home. I agree. I never throw the ball home. And I think that there's so many things that Paratroopa does that like he falls into the category of like good player. I just don't think he is exponentially better to where you'd rather leave Boo on the table for someone else to draft. And then you have to then take a pitcher who is just such a worse hitter than Boo. I also think that there's a lot of situations that happen in game that like maybe contextualize is not the word, but there's definitely things that I don't like playing a game and saying, well, this character does X, Y, Z, but is it going to factor into the game? I, I tout myself as one of the best players in the world at this game. I don't carry wall jump characters. I don't care. Like if I give up a home run, I'm giving up a home run. Like that's on me. I don't want to carry a player like Luigi, even though I think Luigi is a good fielder and a decent hitter. I don't care to carry a fielder and say, oh, well, you know what? Like if I had Luigi there, Luigi's going to make that play. Like, okay, well, what if that doesn't even come into play? And now for 9 innings, I've had a worse hitter on my team where I know I'm going to get 5 at bats at Luigi, but do I know I'm going to get an extra base hit with Luigi? And the same thing can be said with Paratroopa. Like Paratroopa has a 1-star. But what if there's 2 times where Paratroopa leads off the inning and there's no one on base and I have 3 stars? I'm not using a 1-star there. Now, Boo leads off the inning and I have 3 stars. Now I can get Boo into scoring position just because of his bat. And now when I bring up a 1-star character, I have 3 stars instead of having 2 stars. At the same time, it's if I'm using a star with Paratroopa, I want that double. And if that ball lands, there's a way higher percentage of a double play. I don't think I've ever doubled up with Boo. Ever. And I've doubled up with Paratroopa multiple times. On top of it being, what if it's, again, man on first base, I have 1-1-star and Para's up and there's no outs. Well, am I using that star? Am I not using that star? I don't know. Man on first base, I have a 1-star, I have Boo up. I'm using that with Boo. I just think there's a lot more situations where Boo is a better value hitter because, again, you're not always going to have runners on base. And like I've talked about this like with multiple people like Hong-Zhi and stuff like that. We talked about wins above replacement. You can't assume you're going to have guys on base to where you're going to use that 1-star. As someone that scores runs, I'm not assuming a character's value based off of guys being on base. I'm assuming their value based off of the situations that I know are going to be up. I know Boo's going to have 5 at-bats a game. Is Boo going to have guys on base? Is Boo not going to have guys on base? I don't know, but who's a better hitter 9 times out of 10? Boo, because you don't know if you're going to have to either A, use those stars because it might come into factor, and if his base is loaded, a lot of times people will just pitch to Boo and get paid. So I think that there's more situations with Boo because you're using Boo on home plate at the mound. Boo is 100% playing a factor at his position. Where Paratroopa, are you essentially robbing a home run? Are you getting a guy out at home on a throw? Like these things may or may not happen. Which Boo, he's impacting the game on the mound, and I think he's the best pitcher at his position. And he's impacting the game as a hitter because you don't need star hits. You're not slapping home runs. You're just going up and hitting. And with Paratroopa, I think he is. I know we've talked about like you could get good with any character. Okay, well, if you got really good with Toadsworth and you got really good with Paratroopa, at the end of the day, with non-starred, Toadsworth is still a better hitter. Like the numbers have shown that Toadsworth has a better bat. And I think that, Paratroopa, while I think his star is very good, I think as a singles hitter, I think as a consistent bat, I think it is below Toadsworth. I think it is below Magic Hoopa. Now, how much different is he than Greenoki? I don't know. But like I'd rather draft Boo, even if we want to say, well, Para is a better player than Boo, which we're making the argument now. You could say that. But if you draft Paratroopa and you get Boo, am I drafting Noke? Am I drafting Noki? Now, do I own both of them? I don't know. But if I own Boo and I get Noki, like I don't think there's a huge fall off between Paratroopa, Noki, Paratroopa, Toadsworth offensively. But with the resurgence of Pianta, with the resurgence of Greenoki, I think the problem that Paratroopa falls into is that there's too much similarity between Paratroopa and Noki. With Boo, there's no one similar to Boo. And I'll wrap it up. That's 5.
All right, cool. So this will just be the 1-minute summary then. So to wrap up my points on Paratroopa, he's got an incredible 1-star swing. You know, you're almost always getting on base. If not, you're getting a double, and there's a lot of potential to get in some runs. He's a very good outfielder. You know, he's got a pretty good speed, decent speed. He'll be fielding those balls. He's got a great throwing arm to get the ball right into the infield, right into play. And also, he's got the super jump ability, which, while it doesn't always come into play, you're not necessarily drafting Paratroopa for that reason. It's more of an added bonus that you get with Paratroopa. Additionally, he's got that Bowser chemistry, that Bowser compatibility, which is obviously a huge... it makes Bowser just that much more of a threat. And, yeah, that's pretty much my case on Paratroopa.
Okay, I'll start right now as much as I can, as fast as up. Okay, so Paratroopa, I think he is the third best 1-star hitter from a bat. I think ultimately, though, Paratroopa's value is based off a star, which you don't know if is going to even play a factor because you need to have guys on base, you need to have the right inning, you need to have the right amount of star chances for the game. I think with Boo, you don't need any of that. You can just hit with Boo, and Boo's a better hitter. I think even with the 1-star, I'd rather have Boo because I can use that 1-star to lesser hitters, which means I can roster either better fielders, better chemistry partners. I don't think Paratroopa is that great in the outfield. I think the ability that Paratroopa does not have sliding catch, and there's not that many plays made at home. I think Paratroopa, again, is just too similar to other characters where I'd rather draft Boo and have to leave you with a lesser pitcher, with a lesser offensive player. And while I do think Paratroopa is very good, I just think that Mitnoki is almost identical. And if I can get Boo and Mitnoki, I'd rather have that than have Paratroopa and whoever I'm rostering at the pitcher spot.
Great.
So, okay, there we go.
Okay. If I counted correctly, you guys both made 3 arguments and a closing statement. I seriously hope, because I'm interrupting you. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're good.